when you talked about, you were talking about Alaska, Pacific Northwest, a lot of Bigfoot sightings.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Bigfoot sightings in Tennessee, too, Kentucky. And
A lot of moonshine in Kentucky, Tennessee, too.
Yes.
A lot of people smoking crank.
yes. So after I was a policeman, I had a master's degree. I worked technology for a while. I had a master's in HR, and I ran HR organizations. Did that for 5, 6, 7 years. I said I had enough and I'm leaving. I had young kids, so I was going to leave with my family and have fun. 2 founders of this company, super rich, come to me and they say, hey, Dave, we got a job for you. At your own space, at your own will. Here's the story. When they were younger, they didn't know each other. They grew up in different parts. They went up into the woods with their families, backpacking, camping, having fun. They get up in the middle of the night, take a leak, and independently, didn't know each other, they saw Bigfoot. They found each other, they formed this company, made millions of dollars. One day they're at lunch, and they start talking to each other, and they had the same experience. They said, wow, that's freaking bizarre. So let's get to the bottom of it. So I'm leaving. They know I have an investigative background. They said, hey, we're going to hire you. We want you to go find out if it's true, false, or hoax.
They hired you to go check to see if Bigfoot was real?
Flip the whole bill. They said, you can do it at your own pace, own will, we'll pay for everything. I said, not interested. They came back to me like 4 or 5 times. Finally, at the end of a year, my wife is divorcing me. I now have only 50% custody. I have 50% of my life open to do whatever I want. They came at me again. I said, okay, I'm going to shorten it down to from what took 5 years to 5 minutes. Tennessee, Great Smoky Mountain National Park. There was a man there named Scott Carpenter. Scott, rest his soul, has since died, but he took me into an area in the park. And he said, Dave, this is the part where I've had all kinds of evidence.
What kind of evidence?
Footprints, hair.
Hair?
Hair.
So has he ever had the hair analyzed? Okay.
So we start talking about it. How can we get a good sample of hair? So I said, with bear, they take bear samples and DNA samples from bear all the time. Let's try this. Let's take some packaging tape, wrap it inside out on the outside of a tree. Put something at the fork of the tree, some kind of food, whatever, honey, something. If they lean up against the tree, it's going to pull the hair out, which we need the follicle for the DNA. Let's see if that works. She says, brilliant. We did it. It worked. In that area, we had tracks. Now, just so you know and everyone else knows, there's hair and fiber experts in the world, and they testify in Superior Court all the time. Like out in the lobby, you have all these different kinds of animals. If we took a hair from one animal and gave it to a hair and fiber expert, he could tell you within 2 minutes what animal that came from, because every hair looks different. So we took those hairs, went to a hair and fiber expert, and they said, well, where'd you get that? And I go, what do you mean? We've never seen that hair before. It's not classified. It doesn't exist. Okay, so that means we're on to something. So then I took...
Does it have follicle? Can they do a DNA on it, or is it just hair?
They did.
Okay.
It did. So I called I was living in California at the time. I called the University of California, Davis, the biggest animal lab in the world. And they said, what do you got? And I explained it. They said, Bigfoot, we're not touching it. We don't want anything to do with it. I went to University of Texas, UC Davis. I went to like 6 or 7. No one would touch it. But then I found a woman that testified in the courts here in Texas as a DNA expert. I called her up. Her name's Melba Ketchum. Dr. Ketchum, I have this sample here. Would you be willing to do DNA analysis on it? Absolutely. It's going to cost you so many thousands of dollars. I go, no problem. We've got somebody who's going to pay. So she goes, okay, let's do one better. Dave, send me the sample. Let me look at it first. I'm going to give it to my hair and fiber expert. They look at it. Hair and fiber expert says, it's nothing we've ever seen, so that's good. So she goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. Can you get any more samples? I said, I have an idea. Let me try. So I go on coast to coast, and I laid it out. I said, hey, we have these samples. We're looking for hair samples. Don't bullshit us because we'll know right away. Send us hair samples with everything attached, and we're going to send it to a lab. You don't have to pay the bill. We got 125 valid samples that were not deer, antelope, bear, whatever. She goes through the DNA analysis on it. I think it cost us $400,000 at the end of the day. It's a lot less expensive now. And so hair will give you mitochondrial DNA from the maternal side, but it won't give you fraternal DNA from the father's side. That you need nuclear DNA, blood, tissue, saliva. And we got some of those. Son of a gun. At the end of the day, the DNA comes back 12 to 15,000 years to the Middle East on the mother's side. Father's side, it doesn't exist in GenBank. 352 billion base pairs of DNA does not exist. The father's DNA does not exist. GenBank says it's impossible. Since that time, other people have come forward and said, hey, you know, on the elongated skulls, we've had the same problem. We can't find the fraternal DNA just like you. That's a guy named L.A. Marzulli that was doing the research there. And then Ron Moorhead, who's doing other DNA studies on elongated skulls in South America, said the same thing. That's odd, Dave. So the maternal, we understand. The fraternal, we don't. And the DNA, they did a paper about it. It's online. I've had a lot of people say, oh, you know what, that's BS, it's bad. But nobody else has ever done a test. And I could get you more hair within 2 weeks if we wanted to. Nobody wants to test it.
I'll test it. What do we have to do?
The truth is,
Jamie, you ready to go? Let's go. Let's get some tape. The truth is,
it'll all come back the same. And I believe that the researchers who have done it, they've gotten the same results.
And so if you say that on the fraternal side, it doesn't exist, on the maternal side, it's showing thousands. Explain that again.
So, like I'm Greek. Mm-hmm. So they could chase my DNA backwards through time to, I don't know, Greece.
Right.
10, 15,000 years ago. Well, they were able to chase the maternal side back to the Middle East 12 to 15,000 years.
And what did they say it was?
That's all they said. But what they're saying is that, and a lot of people have picked up on this, well, that has a lot of religious connotations to it.
Why does it have religious connotations to it?
Because of the Middle East 12 to 15,000 years.
Right. But why is that religious? It's a part of the world 12 to 15,000 years ago. What gives it religious connotations other than the fact that that's the origins of a lot of religions?
That's it.
Right, but it's also humans and different animals live there. Like there's probably deer down there that weren't religious at all. And, you know, their DNA tracks back to that too. Specific results she reported. She claimed 111 samples from 34 North American sites produced two patterns: human mtDNA and unusual or novel nuclear sequences that supposedly did not match known animals. Her interpretation was that about 15,000 years ago, an unknown hominin male population interbred with modern human females, leading to a hybrid lineage whose descendants are today's supposed Sasquatch. How and where it was published. Study did not appear in a normal, established, peer-reviewed journal. Instead, it was put into an obscure outlet called De Novo Scientific Journal, which Ketchum herself effectively controlled to get the paper online. Science reporters and skeptics noted the absence of transparent peer review, the paywall for a self-published paper, and the lack of independent labs reproducing her findings. But did independent labs try to reproduce her findings? That's the question. Scientific criticism. Geneticists and forensic biologists who examined the data and methodology have repeatedly pointed to contamination and poor lab practice as the most likely explanation for her hybrid sequences. Analysis noted that the mtDNA being being 100% modern human is exactly what you would expect from contaminated or human origin samples, and that the odd nuclear sequences are consistent with mixed DNA, sequencing errors, or low-quality data, not a new species. Current status of her DNA claims. No major genetics lab or independent research group has replicated Ketchum's results or confirmed a novel hominin genome corresponding to Bigfoot. In mainstream science, her study is treated as an example of flawed junk science, interesting to Bigfoot enthusiasts, but offering no accepted evidence that Sasquatch exists. But here's the thing. Did anybody else try to test those things?
No. And let me explain. That argument they just used, they're talking to a bunch of idiots. So when they say
They are?
it's contaminated,
Right.
so let's say I contaminated the sample.
Right.
Well, Joe, my dad was Russian. The contaminated sample would show on the fraternal side Russian.
Right.
It wouldn't show nothing.
Right.
That's why that argument makes no sense.
Well, I'm not a geneticist, so I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you could say, oh, this is why, if you had someone who understood DNA and contamination and the whole process, they could maybe explain it in a better way. So the idea that humans interbred with things is not a new idea. I read something recently. I actually watched a YouTube video and then read an article. I think we talked about this. Pretty sure we did. Where they believe that Neanderthal, they used to think that Neanderthal was a subspecies, like a different version of humans, and that they interbred with us. There's a group of people that now are speculating that Neanderthal was the result of humans breeding with another ancient hominid, and that created Neanderthal. So it's not that we interbred with Neanderthal, but that humans actually created Neanderthal by breeding with this other hominid.
So there's only one country in the world that ever took this topic seriously.
Which country?
Russia. They took their science academy and took the 5 top scientists. This happened 40 years ago. And they started studying what was called Almasty, the same as our Bigfoot.
Okay.
And I'm not bullshitting you. This is 100% true. 2 of their scientists came to the U.S. I met one of them at a conference in Colorado 7 or 8 years ago.